Number 7. Doris Spann, Argo. The police in Charleston County, South Carolina, were dispatched to a home on the Isle of Palms on March the 21st of 2015. After receiving reports of a shooting on the property, emergency responders arrived at the scene at approximately 4:15 p.m., at which point they reportedly came upon a victim, later identified as 53-year-old Jonathan Arden Argo, suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. He was transported to Medical University Hospital in Charleston, where he was ultimately pronounced dead. When approached for comment by local news outlets, neighbors revealed that the victim's wife, 44-year-old Doris Spann Argo, had been taken from the home in handcuffs shortly after the police's arrival. It was subsequently reported that the woman had been booked at the Al Cannon Detention Center on murder charges in connection to her husband's death. Following an official investigation into the matter, it was determined that during a heated argument at the couple's home, Argo had armed herself with a handgun, which she then used to fire the fatal round into her spouse of more than a decade. Sometime after the shooting, Argo allegedly cut herself with a knife in order to make it appear as though she'd been attacked by the victim first and had thus killed him in self-defense. Investigators quickly rejected this version of the events, however, and in June of 2016, Argo pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter, resulting in a consequent prison term of at least 15 years. Number 6. Terry Dwayne Turner. Texas man Terry Dwayne Turner contacted the police in the early morning hours of October the 11th of 2021 and chillingly stated, "I just killed a guy." As was later detailed in subsequent reports, the 65-year-old Martindale resident had awoken in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, at which point he saw an unknown vehicle with its headlights off, parked next to his pickup truck in the driveway. Turner told the police that he subsequently retrieved his firearm from the bedroom and ran outside to confront the trespasser. When he emerged from his house, he reportedly watched as the driver of the vehicle activated its headlights and rapidly backed out of the driveway. Turner then gave chase, striking the car's front driver's side window with the butt of his handgun before firing a fatal round at the driver, later identified as 31-year-old Adil Dohi. In the wake of the incident, it emerged that Turner had told investigators that he'd fired his gun in self-defense after Dohi had brandished a weapon of his own. According to the resulting arrest report, however, the victim didn't have a gun in his possession, and Turner was consequently charged with felony murder in connection to the shooting. During the course of the ensuing police investigation, it was determined that on the night in question, Dohi had been driving back to his girlfriend's house in Maxwell after visiting his cousin in San Antonio. Detectives theorized that the man had gotten lost in Martindale and had pulled into Turner's driveway to look up directions. In February of 2022, a Caldwell County grand jury returned an indictment on a charge of first-degree murder for Turner, who reiterated his unfounded claims of self-defense. Number 5. Diane Cristina Rodriguez Mercado. On June the 7th of 2021, police were called to a home in the Brazilian city of São Gonçalo, where they discovered the lifeless, naked, and mutilated body of a male victim. It was later reported that the man had been murdered by his wife, Diane Cristina Rodriguez Mercado, in the early hours of the morning. After the victim was dead, Mercado allegedly cut off his male reproductive organ and cooked it in soybean oil in a frying pan. The police seized a kitchen knife from the home, which they believed to have been used to both fatally stab and dismember the victim. Mercado was arrested on charges of murder and corpse desecration, but maintained that she'd killed her husband in self-defense. She claimed that the man had gotten upset over the fact that their relationship was coming to an end and had subsequently threatened her with harm, prompting her to respond with lethal force. According to relatives of the couple, they'd been known to get into extremely heated arguments during the course of their romantic involvement, and Mercado had even reported her husband to the police on one occasion. As of the latest updates on the case, Brazilian police's investigation was still ongoing. However, it was reported that the authorities had largely dismissed Mercado's contention that she'd acted in self-defense during the fatal incident. Number 4. Michael Murray. On the night of August 3rd of 2014, Connor Morris, a member of the Headhunters Motorcycle Club, was killed during a street fight in the English village of West Auckland. According to subsequent reports, 33-year-old Michael Murray had witnessed Morris brutally beating his younger brother Stanley. The altercation was reportedly precipitated by a disagreement involving another member of Murray's friends group, who'd taken offense to the fact that Morris had refused to shake his hand. As Stanley was getting beaten to a pulp, Murray shouted, "Leave my brother alone," before grabbing a sickle that he'd used to cut his lawn earlier in the day. He approached Morris and directed a blow so the blade of the sickle entered the man's head with enough force to break the skull, as was later detailed by Crown prosecutors. 26-year-old Morris was killed instantly, and Murray was then taken into police custody on murder charges. During his interview with the police and his subsequent criminal trial, Murray vehemently maintained that his fatal strike on Morris had been performed in defense of his brother, whose life he believed to have been in jeopardy. Nevertheless, in September of 2015, Murray was convicted of the murder and consequently sentenced to life imprisonment, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Murray later appealed his conviction, contending that media interest in Morris's death had led to an unfair trial. Justices Reese Harrison, Dennis Clifford, and Brendan Brown ultimately dismissed the appeal, ruling that there had been precautions put in place during the case's legal proceedings to avoid bias on the part of the jury. Number 3. Justin Dunfrey. During the late evening hours of January the 14th of 2018, Canadian man Justin Dunfrey fatally stabbed his girlfriend, Holly Hamilton, 17 times inside his Ontario apartment. Shortly thereafter, the woman was reported missing, and an extensive search effort was set into motion by local authorities. A few days later, her body was found in the trunk of her car at a parking garage in the city of Hamilton. The following day, Dunfrey was arrested and charged with second-degree murder in connection to Hamilton's death. In December of 2021, the 34-year-old man took the stand during the case's legal proceedings and testified that he'd acted in self-defense on the night in question. He claimed that his girlfriend had arrived at his apartment with a strange man who'd brandished a knife when asked to leave. Dunfrey described a chaotic struggle between him and the alleged assailant, which Hamilton had ultimately joined. The supposed altercation culminated with Hamilton being stabbed, according to the defendant's account. Dunfrey also stated that he'd then discarded her body and cleaned up the bloody scene because he was afraid that their daughter would awake to find the aftermath of the grisly brawl. Dunfrey's testimony, which didn't align with evidence found at the crime scene, was roundly rejected by the jury, which ultimately found him guilty of murder. In April of 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 years. Today's topic was requested by Zion Wallace, Sinlock63, Heavenly Drag, and Zadel Danila. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Molly Martens. North Carolina man Jason Corbett was found battered to death inside his home in Winston-Salem on August 2nd of 2015. The victim's wife, Molly Martens, claimed that she and her father, Thomas, a retired FBI agent, had killed him in an act of self-defense during what she described as a life-and-death struggle. According to Martens' account of the deadly incident, Corbett had been the one to initiate the altercation. Martens and her father proceeded to beat him with a paving brick and a baseball bat after he'd allegedly begun strangling her. Despite their self-defense claims, Martens and her father were eventually taken into police custody on suspicion of committing Corbett's murder. They pleaded not guilty and also reportedly filed a motion to have their ensuing criminal trial moved out of Davidson County, which was ultimately denied. Following a 5-week trial, they were both found guilty of second-degree murder and each consequently sentenced to 20 to 25 years in prison. In 2020, however, the North Carolina Court of Appeals overturned their convictions, citing supposed shortcomings on the part of Judge David Lee, who presided over the trial. Their release, which was met with outrage from the general public, was relatively short-lived, as it was reported in May of 2022 that Martens and her father would be tried again for Corbett's murder. Although as of recent updates, a date for the retrial hadn't been officially set, court officials indicated that it would likely be held in late fall of 2022. Number 1. Linda Doyle. At around 10 p.m. on July the 30th of 2019, Alabama woman Linda Doyle called 911 to report that she and her husband had gotten into a violent altercation at their Foley residence. When officers arrived at the scene a short time later, they found both Linda and her husband, James, sprawled across the floor with what appeared to be critical injuries. Paramedics ultimately pronounced James, who'd reportedly suffered a gunshot wound, dead at the scene, while Linda was airlifted to University Hospital in Foley. There, she received treatment for the myriad of stab wounds she'd sustained to the stomach and groin area. In her subsequent interviews with investigators, Linda maintained that she'd shot her husband in self-defense after he'd attacked her with a butcher knife while she slept. According to her testimony, the man's assault of her that night had been the most recent in a long line of spousal abuse incidents perpetrated over the course of many years. However, following a thorough police investigation, it was concluded that Linda's stab wounds had actually been self-inflicted. The woman had allegedly staged the crime scene to support her self-defense claims, when in reality, she'd gunned down her 71-year-old husband in cold blood. Linda had even at one point attempted to solicit the services of a hitman to kill James, but had eventually opted to perform the murderous deed herself. During her criminal trial at Baldwin County Court, Linda's self-defense story was rejected by the jury, who ultimately convicted her of murdering her husband. The 67-year-old woman was consequently sentenced to 99 years behind bars at Tutwiler Prison in Wetumpka. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be taught self-defense by a failed boxer or learn that your accountant never passed math class? Let us know in the comments section below.